Hi guys, it is April from Getting Hooga With It. Today we're here to do another Konmari with me. I've tackled my big bookcase. Now we're moving on to my contemporary bookshelf. Let's get into it. So I started this whole Konmari with me method thing because I would go to my shelves and feel overwhelmed and not very inspired. And I want to go to my shelves and just feel joy. That's what I want. So I started with my big bookcase, and now we're moving on to my contemporary shelf. These can pack a heck of a lot more than the other ones. So usually I'll get like 35 to 37 books on a shelf. And I have decided I want to reduce these bookshelves down to 25, which is hard, but that's what I want to do. My rule for myself is I can take 2 books and put them on my limbo shelf as well, or my limbo pile, which is now on the floor. So there's that. And then also, if I go over 25, I can just pop over to my limbo shelf and get rid of something over there. I've got 36 books here, so I need to get rid of 11 books. Let's see how we do. First up is A Prayer for Owen Meany. This is one of my, I have a couple of bosses. One of them loves this book. He's a lovely person. He's very spiritual and like deep person, and he loves this book, and it's a growing up story about a boy named Owen Meany, and he meets an orphaned boy named Johnny, and they are like just attached. I really want to keep this. I also love the look of this. The edges are so beautiful, so I want to read this. I'm going to keep it. Next up is Bodily Harm by Margaret Atwood. This is about a freelance journalist who takes an assignment in the Caribbean, and there's this corrupt world that she gets involved with. I don't think I want to read this. Even though it's Margaret Atwood, there's something about it that isn't really calling to me, so I'm just gonna let this go. Next up is The Edible Woman by Margaret Atwood. I think I've tried to read this a few times and I just couldn't get into it. It's about a woman who has anorexia. I just couldn't get into it, so I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna be brave, and hopefully Margaret Atwood doesn't hate me. The Art of Racing in the Rain. I mean, I have to keep this. This is about a dog. I think it's even from the perspective of the dog, so I mean, I have to keep this. Liane Moriarty, 3 Wishes. This follows, are they triplets? Yeah, they turn 33 years old. It's about each and every one of them and their different lives that they're having that are quite different. Like together they're this unified group, but on their own they're dealing with a lot, and I want to keep this just because I really love Liane Moriarty. Similarly, The Hypnotist Love Story, also by Liane Moriarty. This is about a woman who gets involved with this man who has a stalker, and she's like, oh, that's kind of cool that you're you know, kind of hot enough and desired enough to have a stalker. And she's like, I kind of want to meet the stalker. And little does she know that she's already met her. It's supposed to be funny, but also kind of scary. I don't know. I would be scared. So I want to keep this. Lily and the Octopus. Why would I ever get rid of this? This was my favorite book of 2017. I really loved this book. It's about a man named Ted. It might as well be his daughter, his dog daughter named Lily. She has cancer, brain cancer, and he's trying to save her. And it's so heartfelt and so meaningful to me. I'm keeping this forever. Next is When We Were Romans. This is about a 9-year-old and his mom, and they go on a trip. I think I tried to read this a while ago and I just wasn't blown away by it, so I'm just going to pass this along. I do love the cover. The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox by Maggie O'Farrell is about a woman who finds out that she has an aunt she had no idea about. She gets this call that her aunt, her great aunt Esme, is being released from a hospital after 61 years. Her grandmother had always said that she was an only child, So I need to know what this whole mystery is about and who this woman is. Come Thou Tortoise is another book that has like very soft place in my heart. It's about a woman named Audrey. Her dad is in a coma and she's trying to get to him. And how do you explain this book? It's got some magical realism in here, but I don't like magical realism. She's got this pet tortoise named Winifred, yeah. And it follows a bit of Winifred, who's on one side of the continent, and then Audrey, who's running to her father on the other side, and it's about their story together. I'm explaining this terribly. This is one of my favorite books of all time. But it's hard to explain. You will fall in love with Audrey. She's different. I don't know if she has a mental illness or disability. I'm not sure, but I loved her so much. I need to reread this. Such a good one to read at Christmas because it takes place at Christmas. Next up is The Housekeeper and the Professor. This is about a math professor who had this traumatic head injury. And now he can only remember 80 minutes of short-term memory, and that's how he lives. Now he has this housekeeper who comes every day, and every morning she has to introduce herself, and it is about their relationship together. And doesn't that sound wonderful? And it's short. It like brings a smile to my face. I want to keep this. Good Harbor by Anita Damont. This is about two women who are the best of friends. One of them finds out that she has cancer, breast cancer, and she's sorting through that. The other one is, I think, dealing with a marriage that's breaking up. And I love how this author touches on female friendships. She gets it. You know that Anita Damont has amazing female friends. Or doesn't and wishes she does. But no, I think she does because she gets friendship in a very good way. So I'm keeping this. Our Souls at Night sounds very sad about two, I think, elderly people. They're both widows or widowers, and they lean on each other and they try to create some sort of like romantic relationship, kind of. I'm gonna put this on my limbo pile because I'm just not sure. Judy Blume, Summer Sisters. This follows two girls who were like best of friends for a very long time. They've kind of went their separate ways, but one of them is getting married and she calls up her old friend and says, "Would you be the maid of honor?" And she goes and says yes, even though there's a lot to sort through from that relationship. Like, it didn't end very well and they need to sort things out, and I would like to know. And it's Judy Blume. I mean, that's my childhood. I'm keeping it. Next up is Middlesex. This is also the winner of the Pulitzer Prize, and this follows Calliope discovering why she's not like other girls, and to do that she has to discover a family mystery. I don't know about this book. I haven't known about it for a while now. A lot of people love it. Again, it's a winner of a Pulitzer Prize, and I always seem to be drawn to them and then also disappointed by them. So I'm gonna put it on my limbo because I really don't know. 15 Dogs I'm going to get rid of. This just doesn't do it for me. It's about a group of dogs overnight at a Toronto veterinary clinic. I don't think it's for me, so I'm gonna let it go. Flowers for Algernon is about a young boy who has some sort of disability. I just don't think that I want to read it. Is that bad? I just don't think I do, so I'm gonna let it go. Peace Like a River follows a young boy who is on the search for his older brother who has been charged with murder. And so they're trying to find him. I am kind of curious about this one. I think Katie from Life Between Words really loves this book, so I'd like to keep it and find out why she loves it so much. Next up is The Robber Bride by Margaret Atwood. This is about three women who meet, I think, in university. And one of the women, Xenia, really just draws everyone in. Years later, Xenia is thought to be dead, and suddenly she reappears. And it's about their lives together, and I want to read this. This is not the best, it's not in the best state, so I might look for another copy of it, but I do want to read this, so I'm going to keep it. Next is The Elegance of the Hedgehog, which all takes place in a hotel. I've actually heard fairly bad things about this since I picked it up, so I'm going to get rid of it. The Memory Keeper's Daughter is next, which sounds really sad. It's about the delivery of twins. This doctor delivers his own twins. One of them has Down syndrome and one of them doesn't. He tells his nurse, Carolyn, to bring the child with Down syndrome to an institution. Instead, she keeps the baby and raises the baby on her own. It just sounds fascinating to me, and I want to keep this. Heartburn by Nora Ephron. This is funny, and if you listen to this on audio, it's narrated by Meryl Streep, who I love. Yeah, it's funny, but also sad because it is based on Nora Ephron's actual real life and what happened to her when her husband decided to cheat on her when she had littles. Yeah, I'm going to keep this. The Husband's Secret by Leanne Moriarty. I really enjoyed. I really loved this book. It's about a woman who goes into I think it's the attic or the basement, and she's like kind of decluttering, and she stumbles upon this letter that says, it's from her husband. It says, "Don't open unless I'm dead." And so she calls her husband, and he's like, "Oh, don't, I just wrote that when our daughter was first born. Don't worry about it. And, you know, please don't open it." And she's like, "Okay." And then she opens it because of course she does. And it's about the contents and how that affects her life. And I was hooked. And really liked it. I'm keeping it. Next up is Little Bee by Chris Cleave. Now, I read Chris Cleave and didn't like it at all. But this is about two women and their lives collide one fateful day. And one of them has to make a terrible choice. 2 years later, they meet again. The story starts there. I'm not sure. I'm going to put it on my limbo and see what happens with it. The storied life of A.J. Fickery is about a man who owns a bookshop, and one day a child enters his life and changes his life forever. He's kind of like a crotchety, grumpy person. I want to keep this because bookstore, crotchety man, yeah, I'm going to keep it. Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is about immigrants who come to America and their experience. I think America and then also England and their experiences. And I really want to read this, so I'm keeping it. Major Pettigrew's Last Stand. This is about a man who is very set in his ways. He meets Mrs. Jasmina Ali, the Pakistani shopkeeper from the village, and they become friends, and I want to know the story. I'm feeling like it's going to be really heartwarming, and I would love to read it, so I'm keeping it. Next is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. I don't know. It's really well known, right? Isn't this well known? This is about a man who is, it sounds like he's eccentric, and he decides to investigate the suspicious death of a neighborhood dog. I'm going to put it on my limbo. I don't know. The Love Song of Miss Queenie Hennessy is the sequel to The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry. I'm going to keep this in case I love that, and yeah, I'm going to keep it. The Sense of an Ending is about death and grief. I don't know if I really feel like reading this, so I'm going to actually let this one go. My Name is Lucy Barton is about a woman in a coma or in the hospital, and she's recovering, and it follows her recovering and reminiscing. I'm also putting this on the limbo pile right now because I've heard good things about it, but I don't know if this is for me. This might have like stream of consciousness in it, which I don't like in books at all, so I'm gonna think. Sing Unburied Sing, I'm absolutely keeping. This is meant to be quite sad about a 13-year-old boy living with a mother who's a drug addict. It sounds really sad, but I'm 100% keeping this one. Next up is The Little Paris Bookshop. I haven't heard amazing things about this, but there's something about this book that I'm just curious about. It's about a man who has this floating bookstore in Paris, and he can give a book to people who need it. It's almost like book therapy, and I am just curious. This just might be a really nice light read, so I'm gonna keep this one. Then there's The Little French Bistro, and I think I'm gonna actually let this go. It's about a woman who is struggling in her life, and I think she ends up going to work at a restaurant or something like that in Paris. This just is not the same as the other, so I'm gonna let this one go. Okay, last two. Tin Man, I want to reread this. I read this on audiobook at a really busy time in my life, so I don't feel like I absorbed it entirely, and I want to reread it. I'm keeping that. The Girl's Guide to Hunting and Fishing is a book that I read a while ago, like many years ago, and I remember really enjoying it and thinking it was funny, and I might want to actually reread this, so I'm going to keep it. Okay, so I've got 8 books that I'm getting rid of, and then I've got quite a few here to go through for my limbo. I need to get rid of 11 in total. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do is get rid of My Name is Lucy Barton, The Little Bee, and Our Souls at Night. So that brings it up to, is that 11? That's really good, because that means I'm getting rid of 11, and then I'm putting on my limbo pile The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime and Middlesex. So we're in a really good place. Let me know in the comments below if I got rid of anything that you really loved, or if you think I did good. This is hard. It's hard. I'll talk with you soon. Bye, guys.